What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome back for some more Fire Emblem Heroes. And in this video I'm going to be taking a look at all of the new weapon refines that we have got with this new update. And I'm also going to be going over the builds for these units, and there are a lot of weapon refines that we have got this time. So here are timestamps of these units, and if you want to take a look at a particular unit you can use them. So let us begin.
I'm not the hardiest fighter you'll ever meet, but I'll prove my use.
Eliwood always struggled because he had an outdated stat spread and he was outclassed by a bunch of sword cavaliers, not to mention all of the criticism that he gets for his art. But this weapon refine outside of his art does relieve a lot of his issues to a great extent. First of all, the base effect gives him death blow essentially, and then upon the refine you get Swift Sparrow. So just with his weapon he's able to get plus 10 attack in the player phase, so Lilina has got nothing on her father-in-law. This also gives him plus 4 speed, and this makes him a fearsome player phase cavalier who's easily available in the 3-star and 4-star pool. You could still compare him to Siegbert, and Siegbert will be having more speed than him and also has better defense. But Eliwood does have resistance, and that does have its merits, especially in ether raids, and he can use ploys which no other sword cavalier can like him. So if he wants to outspeed any unit, he can run speed ploy. If he wants to do more damage, defense ploy is the way to go. And if he wants to take less damage or trigger his heavy blade easily, then attack ploy is also really nice. So he can support his allies with ploys and also support himself. And overall he's a solid unit now, and a really good unit to invest into if you do have Divine Dews and if you do like Eliwood. As for his IVs, plus speed IV is the best boon to go for, and for Bane you could go with minus HP or minus resistance depending on if you want to use ploys or not. But because he's easily available in 3-star and 4-star pool, you could just plus 1 merge him to get rid of his Bane, so that's not really a big issue, and I'm really happy that Eliwood is such a solid player phase unit now.
Watch me work!
His first build is a budget build using Fury, of course, and Desperation. I mean, this is the bread and butter of budget builds, and you can run Glimmer on him because he does have really nice attack. And as I said, plus speed IV is the best boon for him, and you can run defense ploy to increase his damage output because he's going to be having a solid 35 resistance with Fury. Darting Blow from the new Tempest Trell is the perfect Sacred Seal for him, and with this build he can reach 46 speed, which is really good. And if you're running him on a Horse Emblem team, then you could run some other Sacred Seal. His second build is also a budget build if you do not really have Fury fodder. So you could have Death Blow on slot A and have Darting Blow. With this build he can reach 63 attack and 43 speed, which is pretty good. His third build is using Swift Sparrow, and thanks to Naysala, this skill is easier to get now with Heroic Grails, and this puts him at 61 attack and 47 speed unboosted, which is a lot. And he can still make use of defense ploy on getting that debuff on lower res enemies, even though he's not carrying Fury. And his fourth build is using Gale Force and Heavy Blade. Because of Eliwood's high attack, Heavy Blade Sacred Seal is a great option on him, and Gale Force makes him a really good cavalier in something like ether raids, and you could run Escape Route if you're gonna be using him in ether raids. And Desperation is also really good outside of that. And because we're not running Darting Blow Sacred Seal, you will need to give him some kind of speed support like Cone Cavalry so that he can outspeed a lot of units. And his final build just showcases what he is at max investment at plus 10 merge, and if you give him attack speed solo, that's obviously the most premium slot A skill and amazing on cavalry units, and he ends up at 67 attack and 47 speed, which is a lot. And he also has really nice resistance even without Fury, thanks to merges, so you can make use of ploys really well. It was not looking too hot for Tharja when Celica and Lilina got their weapon refines, not to mention her own bridal alt completely outclassed her original version. But this weapon refine definitely brings something unique to her and gives her a nice utility. So this weapon just removes the penalty of the normal Blade Tome on special cooldown, which means that she can abuse stuff like Heavy Blade and Glimmer and just trigger that in Desperation range. She can also abuse stuff like Special Spiral, which makes it really potent on a Blade Tome unit, and it's a 14 Might Blade Tome, essentially Thunderhead from Green Olwen. And upon the weapon refine, you get this drive debuff skill, which puts -4 attack and -4 speed debuff on foes within 2 spaces of Tharja. And this is not a visible debuff, this is a in-combat debuff similar to Julius's Tome, which means that there's no way the enemy can avoid this debuff if they are within 2 spaces of Tharja. not by using Harsh Command, not by using Restore Plus or anything like that. So this essentially gives Tharja +4 speed and +4 defense and resistance at all times, which is really good with her HP pool, so she can be more bulky, and speed is of course really nice for an offensive unit like her. And this debuff is something which her allies can also utilize as long as the enemy is within 2 spaces of Tharja. So this makes her a really good cheerleader because she doesn't really have to waste any kind of turn or do anything and can provide this debuff utility to her allies, which makes her a really good cheerleader for arena whenever our dual infantry comes out. So Tharja has got a really nice Blade Tome now and also gives nice utility. As for IVs, plus speed IV is the best one, obviously, and for her Bane, you will have to go with minus resistance or minus defense because HP is a super Bane, but it doesn't really mean much if you do merge her.
Killing is my job.
Tharja's basic builds don't really change because she still has the good old Blade Tome, but you could run something like Drive Speed to provide +8 speed support to an ally essentially because of the -4 speed debuff which she can provide with her Tome. And obviously you could run Heavy Blade and trigger Glimmer when she's in the Desperation range because of the fact that this Blade Tome doesn't really have the cooldown penalty. And for her third build, you could use Special Spiral as I said before, as Glimmer is a 2-turn cooldown special and setting it up is not really all that hard with the help of something like Infantry Pulse. You could obviously run Quicken Pulse or Heavy Blade as a Sacred Seal 2 to set up it, and having a Blade Tome unit who can be completely buffed and just spam Glimmer at all times with Special Spiral is really powerful, especially when you can easily pair her up with someone like Legendary Azura. And her fourth build is using Close Counter and Vantage. Now because of the debuff and her HP pool, Tharja isn't really all that frail and can definitely live at least one hit many times, and Close Counter Vantage is a really potent combo for Ether Raids for sweeping teams, and it's absolutely amazing on Blade Tome units because they can be so powerful. Her fifth build is definitely a bit gimmicky, but it uses a Feign skill. So Feign skills can be stacked up with in-combat debuffs like Tharja's Hex, and she can essentially give -11 attack debuff to enemies combined with her Tome and this slot B skill. It's definitely expensive builds, but it's definitely an option which you can have, and you can also run shield skills on her slot B, but Feign skills do give you more control. And her final build is a cheerleader build. As I said before, Tharja is going to be a really good cheerleader when our dual infantry comes out because of her Tome and the fact that she's a Blade Tome unit, so she can chip away the health of units really nicely. And you can also pair up Chill Attack or something like Attack Feint on her slot B to reduce the attack of enemies and just help your bonus unit. And you can also run Wind Sweep or Water Sweep to make sure that she doesn't really double slow armor units and just take them out, so that's definitely an option.
I'll do my best!
Nino has always been a really powerful green infantry mage who's easily available, and honestly she didn't really need this weapon refine as desperately as some of the other units who are just sitting in dust. And I'm saying this when I'm a really big Nino fan, but this weapon refine just makes it even better for her. It obviously removes the special cooldown penalty and gives her even attack wave. It gives her self-sufficiency, which is a really good thing for a Blade Tome mage, especially when you can combine it with other wave skills in Slot C and also in Sacred Seal. And if you were using Nino before with any kind of team, then you probably had a team built around giving Nino all kinds of buff. Then in that case, this weapon refine doesn't really do much for you and you're just much better going off of the speed refine or just saving your divine dues actually. So it's nothing really too flashy and just plays into her strengths. And I really like the fact that this tome's name is after Nino's biological mother. And Nino's family, the original family, was said to have really powerful mages with innate talent, similar to how Nino has got that. So the even attack wave really does make sense. This is also a reference to the support which she had with Kanas in Blazing Blade, so it's a really wholesome name. And as for IVs, plus speed IV minus defense is the best IV spread for her.
I never learned to read very well. You'll help me with that, right?
Her first build is a budget build, and you can run Heavy Blade Sacred Seal and Trigger Glimmer in the Desperation range thanks to this new tome. And her second build just uses the Speed Refine because, as I said, if you already have a team built around Nino, which does give her the buffs, then there's really no point of giving her even attack wave refine, and you can easily go with the speed refine. Her third build uses odd attack wave, which complements even attack wave really well for giving her self-sufficiency in every single turn. She will be getting plus 12 damage no matter what, unless she gets panic ployed or get hit with a Versa's Tome or a Panic Manor or something like that in Ether Raids. But in any case, Nino is definitely the best unit to give give odd attack wave 2. Her 4th build uses 3 even wave skills, which gives her really good self-sufficiency and plus 24 damage with Blade Tome, and it's a really good build for modes like Ether Raids and Arena, where you've got short matches where she can just quickly nuke something. But once again, Panic Ploy is something that you have to keep in mind, and on odd turn, she's not really going to be able to do a lot of damage unless she's buffed by the allies, so it can be a pretty nice build which goes with her Weapon Refine. Her 5th build uses Special Spiral because Glimmer is a 2-turn cooldown special with this tome, so you could spam Glimmer with a fully buffed Nino, and that's extremely powerful. It's similar to the Tharja's build which I went over, and you can easily set it up with Infantry Pulse or Heavy Blade Sacred Seal. Her 6th build is Close Counter Vantage, which, as I said in the Tharja builds, that it's a really good build for Ether Raids for sweeping teams, and if you run odd attack wave on her, then she's always going to be getting that plus 6 attack, and combined with something like Brazen Attack Res, she can be very powerful in the Vantage range. And her final build is a Cheerleader build. Green Dual Infantry is a skill which you could easily give to her, and you could have Wind Sweep or Water Sweep to disable her doubles so that she doesn't really end up killing slow armor units. And even Attack Wave can actually be a really good thing for buffing up your bonus units, but it can work against you because if you run tactics on your arena core, then she might be able to get really powerful and just one-shot a foe instead of just weakening them. So it's definitely one of the flaws of having a Blade Tome unit as your cheerleader, but still it's an option nonetheless, and a really good option if you like Nino and you have decided to plus and merge her.
I admire your professionalism.
I have mixed feelings about Seth's Weapon Refine. It's definitely better than Titania's Weapon Refine because Seth actually has an attack stat and can check green armor units like Surtur in Ether Raids, and Speed Tactic is way more rare than Res Tactic, which Titania has got. But on the other hand, it really makes me sad that a monster like Seth has been ruined so badly in Fire Emblem Heroes. I mean, they could have definitely given him some kind of other Weapon Refine. This is certainly not bad in terms of support, but he could have definitely worked out with something offensive or even something defensive that makes him a really nice cavalry tank, but unfortunately it doesn't really do that. So he has got Speed Tactic as his Weapon Refine, and he still has a legendary Ruby Sword, and he can check common green threats really well like Surtur and Ether Raids. And Speed Tactic is definitely really rare. It's only present on Ilger and also Legendary Lyn, which are 5-star exclusives, but if they ever make Speed Tactic on a 4-star unit or even make it as a Sacred Seal, then this Weapon Refine is definitely going to be losing a lot of its value. Definitely having this boost on a weapon is nice, but you're going to be spending 200 Divine Dues for Speed Tactic, so that's definitely something which you have to consider if you really want to build that mixed team or not. The biggest problem with this kind of Weapon Refine is that it just makes Seth stuck into mixed teams, and you cannot really have any sort of flexibility with this kind of build. You have to have a mixed team to have any sort of value out of this refine. So that's one of the biggest problems, and it's not really always possible to have mixed teams like that. But if you're someone who uses mixed teams a lot, then this Weapon Refine is definitely absolutely amazing and worth refining for, because Speed Tactic is rare. So in a vacuum, this is absolutely amazing Weapon Refine for support, but on Seth, it's kind of boring and underwhelming when he could have been something much greater, and just makes him stuck into this mixed team role. That's just my opinion. As for his IV spread, attack and speed are the best boons for him, more so attack, and resistance is the best bane.
I answer Destiny's call.
This is a low investment support set. You could have Attack Tactic from Legault and have Defense Tactic Sacred Seal, and he can buff 3 stats of allies with +6, and Rest Tactic can also be run as a Sacred Seal, and Steady Stance is pretty nice budget skill on a tank unit like him so that he can take on those nasty armor units. And second build uses Attack Wrestling from Valentine Titania, so this makes him a really nice Ether Raid support bot. Smite is really potent in Ether Raids for just pushing your units like armor units in the range of enemies so that you can just sweep them, or just sending off your close counter or distant counter vantage users in the range of enemies and then just sweeping their team. And Seth can buff up all stats of an ally with this, so this is really good for supporting in Ether Raids. But the problem is that he's not having Quick Riposte or Axe Breaker, so cannot really one-round KO a Weary Fighter Surtur if that's your bane of existence, so that's something you have to keep in mind. His third build uses Rally Up Attack Plus, so it's a bit expensive, and using this he can buff up all stats of allies with +6 and this is really potent on a support unit. Alternatively, you could also run a feint skill on a slot B while running this build, and this can give plus 13 bulk to allies with attack feint and defense rest tactic, and this is once again a really expensive build.
Oh, yes!
Niles was always a really awkward archer with absolutely abysmal, pathetic 25 base attack and having good speed at 34 and having good resistance, and fixing him definitely looked really hard. But this new bow and its weapon refine fixes a lot of his issues and is actually a really good weapon. So it gives you -1 cooldown, and it also has the shining bow effect, so the +7 damage is actually true damage, which is absolutely fantastic for a low attack unit like Niles. On top of that, he gets Flashing Blade Refine, which not only uses his speed productively but also frees up his secret seal slot so that he can run something like Brazen Attack Res. This weapon is absolutely amazing in vacuum, but unfortunately Niles himself isn't really all that amazing with that stat line, but still it does make him a pretty decent unit now with this weapon, and he will still be struggling against high resistance and high defense armor units because he's not really going to be getting the true damage, unfortunately, because mix bulk on a lot of armor units is absolutely insane, and this update does hurt weapons like these, in my opinion at least, because a lot of melee range units would just go with the minus resistance as their Bane, but because of this update they can now neutralize their Bane if they are merged, so it can definitely make it hard for you to trigger this kind of effect on them, but still on units who have got a polarizing bulk, this can still work out. As for IVs, you can go with plus speed IV on Niles. Unfortunately, you have to go with that, even though he has got attack super boon. The reason for that is because speed is really important with this weapon, so that you can get the flashing blade triggers and double the enemy and spam something like iceberg. So speed is really important, and for his Bane, minus defense is the way to go.
Time to suffer!
His first build is a budget build with Fury, Desperation, and you can run a Brazen Attack Resistance, which scales up his Iceberg damage, and he can trigger Iceberg when he's in the Desperation range, because remember, this bow does give him -1 cooldown, so Iceberg is a 2-turn cooldown special. His next build is more expensive because of requiring Mystic Boost, and he can trigger Glacies in a single round because of his weapon, and he can also make use of Speed Ploy. So Mystic Boost does nullify the adaptive damage from dragons, and he can be a pretty good dragon slayer because he's gonna be faster than pretty much every dragon in the game for the most part, and if he's not, he can definitely trigger Speed Ploy against them and just double them. Niles' offenses isn't really all that good, so you can definitely run double Brazen skills so that you can push up his offenses even higher with something like Brazen Attack Speed, and he can have 51 attack, which is actually pretty good for someone like Niles, 44 speed and 41 resistance, but there's definitely going to be a heavy opportunity cost because he's not going to be hitting hard at all when he's outside of the Brazen range in his first few combats. And the reason why I'm not recommending Defense Ploy for any of his builds is because it essentially works against the Shining Bow effect, as you will be reducing the gap between opponent's defense and resistance, and in case of Shining Bow, the opponent needs to have 5 more defense than they have got the resistance, so that's why I'm not really recommending Defense Ploy. And his fourth build is definitely expensive with Attack Res Solo. This makes him reach 40 resistance, and you can also use Darting Blow Sacred Seal, and Speed Ploy can help you a lot with triggering Flashing Blade. You could actually use Res Ploy as a slotsy skill to trigger Shining Bow's effect much better by just creating the 5 deficit between opponent's defense and resistance, but that's going to be really expensive.
Let's get wild!
Hinata has always been known as the Red Lucas because of how tanky he can be. He's absolutely amazing when it comes to tanking physical hits, and this weapon makes it even better for him because it has got sturdy stance built into it. It also gives him +3 HP, which is really useful on a unit like him who already has really good HP pool, so he can make use of Panic Ploy, Infantry Pulse much better, and upon refining the weapon you get the Fury effect, same as Botray and Eldigan, and this opens up a lot of new opportunities for his build, but can also hurt him because he's not going to be able to utilize something like Quick Riposte, and he's so tanky that he's not going to be taking a lot of damage even when he's going to be at weapon strangle disadvantage many times. So the passive damage from Fury can definitely be really annoying on a unit like him, but still, as I said, it does open up a lot of opportunities for different builds. And this makes Hinata even better enemy face tank it does give him more attack because this is a 16 might weapon, not to mention the +4 attack that he gets, and he can also get more attack from Fury, so his raw damage output has definitely been improved. And as for his IVs, obviously could go with plus defense IV for more tankiness, or plus attack IV for better raw damage. And for his Bane, he could go with minus HP IV if you're going to be refining his weapon for Fury. I'll go over that in a minute. And if you're not running the Fury Refine, then Speed Bane is definitely the perfect one. And he's easily available, so you could merge him and get rid of the Bane. But I'm not really too sure how many people want to merge up Hinata and let go of that Fury.
Here I come!
His first build is a budget build with double Fury, so he can become Fury Master truly, and they can use Vantage of course on his slot B. There's not really many options for that, and Brazen Attack Defense does synergize really well with double Fury. And the reason why you want to run minus HP IV is because double Fury puts them into the Vantage range and obviously Brazen range in a single round of combat. But that only works if he's minus HP IV. But if he has got neutral HP IV, then he's not going to be falling into the Vantage range in a single combat, assuming that he doesn't really take any kind of damage. And a lot of times he's not going to be taking any sort of damage because he's extremely bulky. So that's why minus HP can be good if you don't really plan to merge him. If you plan to merge him, then it doesn't really matter what Bane you go for. He can end up at 68 attack and 53 defense, and attack smoke is good for reducing the damage he takes. And as I said, the passive damage from Fury is definitely going to be immense and doesn't really go well with such a tanky unit like Hinata. And this build fails to utilize his enemy phase tanking potential in exchange for being a Vantage sweeper essentially. And his second build uses Fury Refine once again, but this time you want to go with double Brazen Attack Defense, and this can put him at 72 attack and 57 defense in the enemy phase when he's active in the Brazen range, and that is absolutely incredible. Fury Refine is absolutely amazing for these kinds of double Brazen setups. And his third build uses Defense Refine. As I said, Fury Refine can definitely hurt him many times and doesn't really let him use Quick Riposte, which is pretty much the best skill for an enemy phase tank. So you could go with the Defense Refine. It's much better in my opinion for consistency for Hinata, and run Steady Stance on his slot A and Close Defense Sacred Seal. And there are a bunch of alternatives on this build, like having Attack Defense Bond Sacred Seal, or having Guard plus Quick Riposte Sacred Seal, and plus Defense IV is also an option. And his fourth build uses Sturdy Stance from Halloween Dorcas. His weapon does have Sturdy Stance built into it, and the focus of this build is to improve his raw damage output, so he can reach 64 attack and 53 defense with double Sturdy Stance and Attack Defense Bond Sacred Seal. And his fifth build uses Quick Riposte. With Quick Riposte, he can trigger Ignis in a single round. You can actually run Ether for much better self-sufficiency, because Ignis with Steady Breath actually does waste one special cooldown, as he's gonna get doubled most of the time. So Ether can also be run, and this allows him to trigger 42 damage Ignis every single round if you do end up running Ignis, that is. And once again, you can just go with plus defense IV as well, and Guard and Quick Riposte combo if you want to. And his sixth build uses Special Spiral. It's definitely really expensive. With Steady Breath, it's easy to set up Special Spiral, and he can instantly retaliate back with Ignis whenever he gets hit with 40 damage Ignis. And because of the Quick Riposte Seal, even if the opponent has got Guard, Special Fighter, they will still get hit with Ignis on Hinata's follow-up attack. And even if someone manages to live through his Ignis, Quick Riposte can definitely help you finish them off. But once again, it's extremely expensive.
Norian filth!
Oboro is one of the few infantry lance units in the game, and she has got pretty good mixed bulk when compared to other infantry lance units. And this weapon does retain her effectiveness against armored units, and this gives a boring yet practical refine in close defense, which does work out with her enemy phase playstyle. And you could definitely compare her to Nefni, who has got a similar weapon which is effective on armor units and gives her a enemy phase stand skill, but it actually gives her -1 special cooldown as well, while Oboro doesn't really get that. If she did get that, then it would definitely make her damage output much better, but Oboro is way bulkier and has got better resistance. This gives Oboro a really nice option for arena because she can take care of those armored units, but still she's going to be struggling because a lot of the armor units are green color and she's not going to be having the triangle advantage against them. And she can also run the Berkut Lance distant counter build if you want to use her in ether raids and if you want to increase her resistance, so those are definitely options. And as for her IVs, you definitely want to go with plus attack IV or either plus defense or plus resistance depending on the kind of build you have got. And minus speed is definitely the best bane to go for her, and merging her is pretty easy because she doesn't really have any kind of coveted fodder skill like Hinata for example, so she can just get rid of that bane.
You are so last season!
Her first build is a budget build utilizing steady stance, and you can have attack defense bond for having much better raw attack. And because she's an enemy phase unit, she can easily utilize bond skills like this, and this puts her at 56 attack and massive 52 defense and a good 30 resistance. Her second build uses close defense, and close defense. So this puts her at 53 defense and 42 resistance, and this is much better if you want to improve her matchup against dragons. So she can definitely dish out 26 damage bonfires with this build in every single round if she does get doubled, and close defense can be obtained from Joshua, who is in the heroic rails. And her third build utilizes steady breath. Pretty standard stuff for any kind of enemy phase unit, and because Oboro is quite slow with the minus attack IV, she can always get doubled and she can trigger ether in a single round. But you could also run something like Ignis if you want to have that massive damage output, so that can also be done. And her fourth and the final build is using distant counter. So this is pretty much breakup with Berkut, because you're not going to be having Berkut lance, which is going to be increasing your resistance. But on the other hand, for a lot of people, they just cannot let go of something like effectiveness on armored units while having close defense refined. So this is just trying to get best of both worlds by having plus resistance IV, odd res wave from Aversa, and having distant defense sacred seal for increasing her bulk against mages. And the biggest strength of Oboro is that she's got much better mixed bulk than any other infantry lancers as of right now, so she could definitely make use of this kind of build really well.
I am not scared!
There is an insane amount of competition among green armor units, and I think Amelia was the last armor unit before the Armor Nation attacked Fire Emblem Heroes with that Christmas banner, I'm pretty sure. So this weapon does retain her slaying effect, which she has got with her slaying axe, and this gives her a Garm-like effect, similar to Brave Ephraim with the same triggering condition, but of course, instead of the guaranteed follow-up attack, she's going to be getting plus 5 speed and plus 5 defense. This is definitely not game breaking or anything like that, but it definitely makes her a better mixed phase armor unit. Now, a lot of armor units can still have mixed phase with Bold Fighter and Quick Repose, but with Amelia, with her natural speed, she can just run something like Special Fighter, which is her best slot B skill after this refine, and basically have something else in her Sacred Seal slot. It might seem irrelevant to have this much speed in higher tier of arena, where everyone has got Bold Fighter and Vengeful Fighter anyways, even though they are slow and can double. But having that kind of speed does have its merits, because you can use Special Fighter, get the breath effect in both phases, and also have the guard effect with Special Fighter. And having that high speed is definitely going to be useful in something like Ether Raids. So while this weapon doesn't really make Amelia into a super strong green armor unit, it definitely makes her a bit more unique, having better mixed phase with Special Fighter, and definitely being one of the best Special Fighter users in the game, along with Brave Ephraim, of course, and also Legendary Tiki. Plus speed IV is obviously the best one to go for, utilizing her weapon, and also for utilizing Special Fighter, because that's her best slot B skill now.
I'll protect everyone!
Her first build is a budget build, doesn't really use Special Fighter. You can just go with the good old Fury for a balanced stat line of Amelia, and also have Renewal to offset the Fury damage. And using this build, she can have 43 defense and 44 speed, and she can dish out 21 damage bonfires in every single round if she doubles. So it's a pretty nice budget build. And her second build is also another budget build, but uses some of the free-to-play units like Ethlyn and also Valentine Titania for the slot A and B skill. So this build is meant more for a mixed team where she's not going to be able to use Armor March, and with the Link skill and also a Wave skill, you could definitely trigger the condition of her axe, and attack speed bond is a really potent Sacred Seal on a unit like Amelia, and this build puts her at 61 attack, 44 speed, 46 defense, and 29 resistance, which is really good. But once again, if you're using her on an Armor Emblem team, then Armor March can be run over this Wave skill. And a third build uses a bootleg Special Fighter with Steady Breath and Guard, and having Attack Speed Bond as a Sacred Seal. So Steady Breath and Ether can be really nice for proccing that in a single round if she can double the enemy, and whenever Darting Breath gets released, Amelia is probably going to be one of the best users of it because of how she's centered around having more speed, and other slot B skills like Link skills, Renewal, or Wrath can also be run on Amelia, and Steady Breath and Ether can be a really powerful combo with that sling effect which her axe has got. And her final build uses Special Fighter, her best slot B skill, and you can also use Distant Counter. You basically need a Valentine Ike for this build, and in March we're going to be having this new update where you could inherit 4 skills at a time. So if you've got a Valentine Ike and you really like Amelia, then you could definitely go for this next month. And Special Fighter does let her have that breath effect in both phases, so she can trigger Ether in both phases as long as she can double, and that's not really all that hard with her Weapon Refine and Attack Speed Bond, which puts her at 47 speed, which is definitely quite nice. And Distant Counter allows Amelia to deal with ranged threats, and you can also run Distant Defense Secretly if you want to increase her bulk against those mages. So that is going to be it for this review. For me, the best Refine, my favorite one was definitely Eliwood's Refine because I really wanted him to become better. And my least favorite Refine out of this batch probably has to be Seth, because he is such a monster in Sacred Stones. I think even saying him a monster is an understatement, I think. I had high hopes for his Weapon Refine that maybe it will fix him and make him much better. But unfortunately it doesn't really do that, just makes him a support unit who's stuck on a mixed team. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, then please be sure to leave a like and let me know in the comments if you're gonna be refining any of these weapons or not, and what are your thoughts on these weapon refines. And make sure to share this video with your friends who are thinking of building any of these units or refining their weapons. And if you haven't already, then make sure to subscribe for more Fire Emblem Heroes content. And be sure to hit that notification bell because YouTube's sub box is about as fast as Arden. So yeah, with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.